Hi everyone, it's the EnglishSimmer here, and call me old school, but I bloody love a Q&A. I love sitting down every Pride Month and just recording a video where it feels like we have a good old heart-to-heart, a little natter. Honestly, it just feels like a little Twitch gathering, and the vibes of that, immaculate. I was about to say I will not be taking any further questions, but I will, because this is literally a Q&A. But this year, I thought we'd mix it up a little bit. I obviously asked you lot what types of videos you would like to see throughout Pride Month, and I unfortunately couldn't cover all of them. I honestly kind of want to, this year, throw more LGBTQ+ themed videos like throughout the year as well. I don't want to become one of those people that only celebrates Pride in Pride Month, which is hilarious because Manchester's Pride isn't even until August, so technically this isn't even my month. We're switching it up this year because one of you was like, I'm kind of in a funk of coming up with non-binary fashion right now within my game, and whilst I do find it difficult to do for reasons that we will probably touch on in this video, I kind of wanted to just show you kind of how I play around with like layering. And I will say the more recent packs, kits especially, and I hate giving kits that recognition because it pains me as a person who doesn't like the way that we're going with kits. They're actually doing it quite well when it comes to framing of Sims bodies. I will just give a disclaimer that non-binary looks different on everyone, and there's no certain way that you have to present or clothes that you have to wear to be non-binary. So I think we kind of need to get rid of that like binary structure within our heads. But enough about all of that. Let's get into the meat of this video. I was about to say let's slap the meat on the table. That's a different type of party. If you had to assign a sexuality to the different Sims 4 worlds, what would you assign to which world? Example, I think Brindleton Bay would be gay and Henford would be a lesbian. I agree on Henford being a lesbian. I do think it is the woo-woo dreams to like move into a cottage and like run away with your lover. It's giving Emily Dickinson, Ivy by Taylor Swift. For 2 is honestly, this might be a little bit of a wild one, but I'm actually gonna say pansexual. We got aliens running around. I feel like people think that it's straight, but I actually think Star Wars is like a pretty gay franchise. Like, it's camp. Brindleton Bay, I think, is gay. Is that because we got the first official gay couple living in there in Brent and Brent? Probably. Although I do also relate it to Life is Strange, it's still gay. Brychester, because it's university and it's like discover, I kind of want to say it's queer. Or maybe unlabeled, I don't know. You get to make your mind up on that one. Magnolia Promenade, even though the name is deceiving, I think it's so straight. Moonwood Mill is pansexual. I also get lesbian from Mount Comerebby. Again, is it because we had a lesbian in the trailer? Maybe. Copperdale, queer. Like, Copperdale is just rainbows everywhere. Newcrest, straight. Del Sol Valley, gay. Oasis Springs, straight. Camp, but straight. Evergreen Harbor, bisexual. San Myshuno, gay. So gay. San Sequoia, bisexual. Salvadorada, gay. Even though the name kind of reminds me of Strangetown, which would absolutely be queer, Strangerville gives me straight energy. Sulani, bisexual. Glimmerbrook, pansexual. Granite Falls, straight. Or Granola gay. Actually, Granite Falls is very gay. Tartosa, I hate to say it, gives me straight vibes. Windenburg, big bisexual energy. Willow Creek, also straight. Are you going to any Pride events this summer? I actually still need to buy my tickets, but I am hopefully going to Pride Manchester. I really want to see Natasha Bedingfield. And I also haven't gone in like the past 5 years, so I really want to get back to supporting my local Pride. I have a lot of questions about like queer media. Have you seen Call Me By Your Name? I am so sorry. I have not. My queer like intake of media recently has been absolutely atrocious. What would you like to see in Heartstopper season 2? I already kind of know this is happening because people have talked about it within the graphic novel, but more focus on Darcy and Tara. I'm fairly sure that is happening. I just want to see my little lesbians be happy, and also more focus on just like the gang in general. I think Nick and Charlie's story was like very sweet. I just want want to see more of like the actual friendship group. I want to see like LGBTQ plus friendships, especially in like people that young. But I didn't really have that growing up. Like me and my friendship group now are very out and proud. But whilst we were growing up, none of us were really out. None of us really talked about that. And so we were very lucky in the fact that we found each other. Having that in school is also sick representation. And I'm kind of so glad that kids these days get to have those conversations and like get to have those friendships. Have I watched Our Flag Means Death? I have not. I have it recorded. It's sat on my Skybox. I just haven't tuned in yet. I will say though, since the pandemic has lifted a little bit, I have started going to concerts more, and I will say I've been having a lot of fun supporting LGBTQ plus artists in that way. I want to start going to more drag shows as well. I just feel like every time there's like a drag show that I want to see, I'm like busy or doing something and therefore I can't make it, and it's really unfortunate. Like Juno's playing in Manchester soon. I would absolutely go to see and support Juno in a fucking heartbeat, but I can't. And on that point, if you have any favorite musicians right now who are part of the community, absolutely let me know, because I definitely want to get out there and start supporting a bit more. I know it's not necessarily LGBTQ related, but what is your current 1 to 10 ranking of all the Taylor Swift albums? Hey, She Sings You Need to Calm Down on the Eras tour. I know I haven't really talked about this like over here on YouTube. I was very disappointed in the choices that Taylor has made recently. I really think that she could be doing better when it comes to like LGBTQ rights and talking about like the anti-legislation that is currently going down in the US. She doesn't even have like gender neutral bathrooms on her tour right now, and I know that's kind of like a venue thing, but Beyonce is out here doing it. Thank you, Beyonce, you absolute legend. Especially when in the Miss Americana documentary, she was so like, I am an ally, I want to continue speaking out about these things, and it felt like she has completely dropped the ball on that. But to give you my ranking, Folklore is still my number one. I personally think Folklore may always be my number one album. Can't believe she sang Haunted the other day. Broke my heart actually as my favorite Taylor Swift song. 3 is absolutely Evermore. 4 is 1989, the duality of being a Taylor Swift fan. 5 is Reputation. Judge me for it all you want. Number 6 is Lover. Actually, I think I listen to Lover probably more than I do Rep, but I think Rep is the better album. Number 7 is Red. I think I just overplayed Red. It still has some of my favorite songs. I say that Treacherous. I mean Treacherous, and also the vault tracks off Taylor's version. 8 is Midnights. Not my favorite. Didn't really like it as an album. Didn't like how the concept didn't match up with the album, but it's a fun album to listen to. Number 9 is Fearless. Has a very special place in my heart. First time I saw Taylor Swift live. Saw 15, live at 15, got to hug her. Was ace. But when you compare it to all her other albums, like, yeah, it's fun, but it's Fearless. And then number 10, Debut. Sorry, Debut. I absolutely love this one just because it gets me to yell about some of my favorite things. But who is your favorite LGBTQ plus game character? I'm gonna have to go out on a limb here. None of you are gonna see this coming whatsoever and say the one and only Steph Gingrich from Life is Strange. I just adore her. I loved her since I played Before the Storm. I was so glad when they brought her back as a romanceable character as well. I love Alex. I think Alex is absolutely wonderful. Like, I relate a lot to Alex, but I feel like Steph, maybe it's because she is an out lesbian.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Wow, Siri. I just get so happy when I see her on the screen, and I just absolutely adore her. This might be controversial. I don't think this is controversial at all. I have a very easy answer to it. Do you believe LGBTQ plus discourse within the community is silly? Because I do. Why are we installing each other's identities and saying certain people don't belong here when we should be a community? Absolutely. I think that infighting is ridiculous. I think that we as a community are stronger when we are a community and we are fighting together. All of the anti-trans laws that are being talked about and are being brought in even in the US so far, why are we not fighting against that? Like, we as a community should be stood together. I do think that the discussions are very necessary. So like, when you say the discourse, I don't think all of the discourse is unnecessary or silly. I think some of it is very important. I think the best thing that we can do is listen to each other, learn from each other, learn how to actually fight against all these laws that are coming in. That's something that I definitely need to do more of. I need to start writing to my council more. I need to start writing to the government more. When we actually see these laws affecting people within the community, and I want want to specifically point out the trans anti-legislation laws right now because it's just absolutely wild. Like, we've seen it in UK cycling just recently. UK politicians, especially Labour, want to change the current definition of sex, and they want it to refer to the biological sex, aka the sex that you were assigned at birth. And if they do that, it's going to affect healthcare because they'll only start treating like biological women, which is just astounding to me. Like, right now, women literally in the laws of the UK refers to trans women. Like, trans women are women within the laws, and I think that needs to continue, and I think we need to raise awareness on this. We need to raise trans voices in this, and we all need to come together and fight against these ridiculous ideologies and laws. I mean, there's a feckin' reason the UK is called Turf Island right now. It's absolutely disgusting and volatile, and I feel like the infighting just leads us to be more broken apart, and when we're more broken apart, it's so much easier for people who don't want us to have rights to pick our rights apart, to actually get rid of all of these things that are keeping us safe. The unknown wouldn't be the unknown if you actually sat down and listened to people within your community and actually talked about their experience, the life that they are leading, what issues they are currently facing, and just having a bit more sensitivity towards each other. I definitely, absolutely think we need to do better as a community. Which, kind of linking onto that, I absolutely love your username, by the way, the person who said this. How do you feel about representation of the LGBTQIA+ community right now, given, of course, the massive changes in our representation and rights across time? I will say it's still getting there. I still think like untraditional media, such as YouTube, for example, and things like that, are currently doing it better than the big media. I am so glad to see the burying of bury your gays trope. I feel like I haven't heard about that too much recently, although, like, obviously with the big leagues like Netflix, for example, we are consistently getting cancelled. Like, I'm so glad that Heartstopper got renewed, and obviously we've recently had the Queer Ultimatum, which I actually think was a very important form of television. I didn't really like the stuff that they had shown. I've still not watched the reunion yet, but I have heard what goes on, and I think they could have done so much better to actually protect the cast of that show. And obviously they could have added pronouns. So I do think there are goods and bads. Like I said, I do feel as if a lot of queer content is currently still cancelled, which is so unfortunate. Like, I think these stories are so important to tell, and I think having it told from the perspective of someone who has actually had that lived experience or is having that lived experience is so important. I still think it's so important to have LGBTQ+ people behind the scenes writing these stories. The Sims 4 has made a lot of additions towards LGBTQ inclusion in recent years. What are your top 3 things you feel are still missing / would like to see? I feel like I bring up these things every single time someone kind of asks this question, and that's like no heat on you. Like, I'm always happy to talk about these things, but talking about them and then never ever seeing them happen like feels pretty defeating. Like, it feels as if we're never gonna get them. Obviously, recently we had the sexuality update. We also had the pronouns update if you played the game in English. Obviously, I would like them to still work on those 2 things. And I feel like The Sims 4 introduces a lot of good systems, but then leaves a lot of them unfinished. I definitely think that science babies fall under that. I think that they need to fix science babies in the sense that currently right now, the person that you choose to have like as a donor or a surrogate, if you are going down that route, is classified as the parent within the game. And I really wish that wasn't the case, or at least I wish it was customizable. Like, I wish that you could kind of edit the family tree in a sense, and you could like maybe have them labeled as like surrogate. But I don't think they should even be part of your family tree anyway. They work for some storylines, but they don't work for all storylines. And it was like, okay, well, you added this thing which felt really inclusive, but there's actually a ton of things that you could do to make it feel more inclusive and tell different types of stories. I've talked about having like a third option, like a full non-binary option, because right now CreatorSim is still so binary. Even though we have the gender settings, even though you now can change your pronouns, you can change your frame and things like that, you still have to, at the baseline, decide between male or female, and then also in the drop down then choose between feminine feminine and masculine frames, which like I understand the frames, but I do kind of wish that there was just like a third gender option that you could choose, and then everything under that third gender option was fully customizable. And this kind of links in also to me wanting clothing to actually fit frames better, those small pieces of clothing that come with kits to fit better on both frames, and I have seen it a lot recently. So it feels like they're inherently trying to do that, but still, if you put like masculine tagged bottoms on a feminine sim, it kind of like carves out their crotch area. It changes the way that like the hands sit. It changes the way that like the shoulders are. Sometimes it like chips off some of the thighs, takes off like the hips. Obviously, I know they're going through an overhaul of like the whole category, and making items work on both frames isn't a small undergoing, but I do think that it's something that the game would actually feel a lot better for. But I would absolutely love to hear what you lot think in terms of inclusivity when it comes to The Sims 4. I think that is so important to like constantly talk about and constantly bring up these facts. Do you watch sometimes, if you have some free time, small creators and their LPs or work secretly? I actually haven't done this in a really long time. I think it's just with having like a busier schedule recently, like the world opening back up, so I kind of have my social life back on the table. I also have a lot of things going on with work. There isn't much time in my day, and when there is, I kind of want to just like switch off to content. So if I'm watching like gaming content, I tend not to watch Sims because I'm like, I have spent so much of my day doing this. I talk to a lot of people on Twitter, which I absolutely love. I like follow a lot of accounts who do a lot of different things, but an excellent time for you lot to drop your favorite Sims creators down below, because I am definitely interested and I do want to show support, even if it's just popping in, watching like 5 minutes so that I feel as if there's not like a crossover too much, and then leaving a comment. I've had a really hard time dating as a queer person. Do you have any advice? Obviously, I think this very, very much depends on geographical location. Whenever I really talk in my Pride themed Q&A videos, I definitely am aware of the privilege that I have. 1, I am white. 2, I am a cis woman. Yes, I am a lesbian, but I also grew up in Manchester, and when I go out, it's like in Manchester mostly. I definitely think this depends on like how out you are able to be, how you are able to flag to other queer people, how safe it is for you to be dating in the area that you are. I always say that like your safety is key. I will say me dating definitely fell back on dating apps. Like I wasn't really going out and meeting people. Yes, I went to like clubs in Manchester, but I don't really like the club scene all that often. I've never ever approached like anyone in real life. But I feel like on apps, I'm kind of able to back myself a little bit more. So I like having that connection like in writing kind of before I go on a date. Feeling comfortable with someone before you meet up with them, I felt that that is like the biggest green flag to me. We started sending voice notes to each other, like I would say 2 days into talking. I've never done that with anyone before. I really liked it because I felt like we got to know each other like before we actually went on a date. But like I said, this is so personal and I don't really know if I can give any other advice. I think you just have to like back yourself. I hope that was helpful. Also, date ideas. I just think the gays do dates so well. Since dating women, I've just like actually explored like things that I want to do. I go into dates like in way more detail, but I really enjoy like going out, doing activities, seeing what you have in common with the person you are dating, do some of those activities together. You introduce them into your world, they introduce you into their world and their interests. I genuinely think that everyone could learn something from watching a gay date. Who was your gay awakening and why was it Meg from Hercules? I actually feel as if the really, really big one was Max and Chloe in Life is Strange. I always say that, but I feel like Life is Strange is kind of the moment, and also Gone Home, which, by the way, if you haven't played Gone Home, you absolutely should. I have a whole let's play of it from like when I was first starting out in YouTube, and I thoroughly enjoyed that game, and that was also a big important one. But yeah, I was playing Life is Strange and it really like took my breath away, in the sense that as I was playing it, I was like, oh shoot. I feel as if for myself, this is a really important area, and I feel as if I actually need to have a conversation with myself about my sexuality. But growing up, I definitely like had crushes on girls. I didn't know that they were crushes on girls. I was just like, oh, I really find this girl pretty and like I want to be like her. Meg from Hercules was absolutely one of them. Obviously, Miss Honey. I personally now get told that I look like people's teachers all of the time, and that is a compliment because I feel like that's a gay experience. I feel like it has some relation to Miss Honey in some way, and I will always take it as a compliment. So thank you to every single person who has ever told me that. I remember going to a pantomime once and it was Robin Hood and there was a woman playing Robin Hood. I literally got back home and like played Robin Hood for like the next 4 weeks. Things like that where I sit down and I'm like, how did you not know? Like, how did this not click before university? Which I've talked about in the past, but I was never really like a romantic person. I was never the person in school to like kiss people. I never wanted to play like boys kiss girls because that was just never me as a child. It wasn't me as a teenager. I had no interest in dating. Like, I pretended I liked a boy for years because it felt like it was the done thing. Like, it felt like between the ages of like 14 to 17, you had to like someone. Like, that was the main point of conversations that we were having. And it was fine when it was a celebrity. Shout out to all my WLW girlies who lent on Zac Efron so hard. He was my go-to man. Who do you fancy? Zac Efron. Who's your perfect man? Zac Efron. I see you, Zac girlies. All of us who had his High School Musical 2 poster up on our walls. I see you. But yeah, I just had no interest in dating whatsoever, and I think that kind of had a knock-on effect of me not really like finding out about my sexuality until later in life. I was in uni, like I was still a baby. Literally, the boy that I pretended to like for 3 years asked me out on a date. We went to one date, we went to watch Slumdog Millionaire. He held my hand and I felt so awkward during that whole thing. I went into school the next Monday, that was on a Saturday. All my friends were like, oh my god, you finally went out with him, like you've been in love with him for like 3 years, how was it? I was like, I don't want to date him. And then they sang Heartbreaker by will.i.am to me for like 3 months. Which, speaking of my friends, do you have a favorite gay friend? I know that they're gonna be watching this. I'm not even gonna say. My lips are sealed. You'll never get it out of me. I don't have favorites. Gonna annoy them so much. Would you be open to sharing your journey identifying as bi to lesbian? I've kind of talked about this in the past. I think it took me a pretty long time to do it, and I kind of went through that area of like, oh, I'm kind of just vibing with my sexuality right now because I think people use biphobia, and they also say that like bi is a stepping stone so much and it invalidates bisexuals so much. I was dating a woman and I was like, I'm bisexual. Like that's just what I felt like. But then I started, like I said, getting those feelings of like, well, maybe I'm not as attracted to men as I thought I was. I started kind of second guessing that. And then I think the heteronormativity played a role because all my life I was like assuming that I was going to end up with a man. Over time, I became more and more comfortable in feeling like, no, that probably wasn't the case. Like I wasn't attracted to men. I didn't want to be with men. Lesbian was such like a dirty word when I was growing up. Like it would be used to describe someone if you looked at a girl the wrong way, if you said something wrong. And so it always felt to me that it had these like negative tropes. I feel like lesbians were also so sexualized. And so I think it took me growing up to an adult and kind of unpacking all of that within my head, being like, no, this is silly. Like, that is not a bad thing to be. And I feel like it also felt that way because this is so ridiculous. This is like the linguistics in me, but the fact that it's like a lesbian and not just like, oh, you're lesbian. A lesbian felt so categorical, and it was like, these are your boundaries. Like, this is what you are. I feel like you can't be anything outside of this. So I really had to just unpack all of that. And I did. And I feel as if me like introducing myself as a lesbian, or when people like ask like, oh, what's your sexuality? And I'll be like, oh, I'm a lesbian. And saying it in a very like casual, and like I said, it brings me so much joy now. Saying it just like in normal circumstances and like hearing it from my own mouth and things like that, like it's so nice. And I feel like it's why it's important. Like, people will say to me all the time, like, oh my god, she's not got anything going on for her other than she's a lesbian. One, I feel like you see, what, half an hour out of my day? And most of the time I'm talking about my Sims. Sometimes I will bring up the fact that I'm a lesbian because it's a joke. Like, I will make jokes about my sexuality within my videos. And I think that also comes from the fact that hearing it out loud and actually like living this and breathing life into that and like saying it out loud, it then makes it a non-scary thing for like future generations. And I know people who have messaged me like in private to be like, hey, hearing you say that term like so comfortably made me way more comfortable with it, and since then I've been able to come out as a lesbian. Sorry, that was a really big tangent. That was kind of my journey. It was all sort of done like in my own brain. Like, I didn't really talk to anyone else about it, which I mean probably could have helped, but I feel like me and my friends also all went through that same journey. I had friends who were out as lesbians like before I came out, but I feel like we kind of all went through that same notion, and I think a lot of it came down to me not wanting to invalidate bisexuality. And on that note, boom, mic drop, gay mic drop, the gayest lesbian, most sapphic mic drop you can imagine. Because I'm just a big old lesbian. I'm gonna wrap up this video here. This is actually so much fun to record. I'm fairly sure you could tell. I've been speaking for 56 minutes. I appreciate you all so, so much. I hope you're all having a very lovely Pride. I hope you're taking care of yourselves, of each other. Please, please, can we just listen and learn and be a community? I am proud of you today and every single day, be it Pride Month. I was about to say every single gay. That too. Thank you all so much for your questions. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments down below if you are comfortable with that. Like I said, I don't want to out anyone. Just a heads up, I won't be deleting them on this comment section. So if you do want to like look out for yourself for your own protection, please don't post anything with like personal information or your name tied to them if you don't want that to be seen. Subscribe if you aren't already. If you didn't know, I was a lesbian and I do gay in The Sims. Feel free to subscribe if that is also your thing, and I will speak to you all in my next one. Bye now.